Today's shout out is for Zuldinga. Rhys the Redeemed versus Nethroi, goes Shintai, and Thalia with the Gitrog monster. We have some turn 1 ramp, and our colours, Staff of the Storyteller, should hopefully be good. Yeah, we can try this. Can be forgiven for slightly clunky hands in multiplayer because we do get to draw on the first turn, and obviously our opponents might hopefully point all their spot removal at each other if we don't go too quickly. And that's a decent draw. Realm Walker for maybe next turn. We'll go for the dual land into a mana dork in the Llanowar Elves. Right, not seeing any spells on turn 1 from our opponents. We get into a land. Might be able to sneak out a tap land with that, so we'll go for Shocking in the Temple Garden. And I think it would be a good idea to get Staff of the Storyteller into play, and then we'll be able to tap it down for a card draw this turn. If we can consistently get card draw out of it, then we'll be able to consistently make lands, which is what I'm concerned with here, because we're obviously going to lose mana on board wipes and spot removal when we lose our mana dorks. I'm under no illusion that we're going to keep these mana dorks. So Staff of the Storyteller draws us a card, and that gets us into an Elvish Champion. So yeah, we're going to have Forest Walk against all of our opponents here. So it might turn out that this is a good Alpha Strike creature. Birds of Paradise for Go Shintai. Nethroi throwing down a Skull Clamp. And it's round to our turn again. Okay, that is an Elvish Harbinger, which we'll be able to play straight off the top once we've got Realm Walker in play. Whatever we tutor for, we'll be able to play straight off the top. We're a ways away from that yet, so let's go for... yeah, we'll just go for a basic with the Arid Mesa, because we want an untapped land here. And then that will allow us into the Beast Whisperer. It's always a card that I don't want to play, but if it stays in play, then the upside of it's really good, of course. So we'll just take a turn off and get that down here. The Croson Verge that came down on turn 1 being sacrificed for a couple of forests here. Yeah, I don't think I mentioned it previously, but you may have seen the game last week with Rhys the Redeemed. That was a generic tokens build, and really didn't like the way it played. I had a few games with it, and you only saw ones where it didn't work because the deck itself didn't do too well. So yeah, I decided to build this, what is obviously an Elf Tribal variant, and hopefully we'll have better luck with the deck this time around. A Collector's Vault for the 5-colour player. Jet Medallion, the first piece of ramp for Nethroi. Noteworthy that there is an Urborg in play now as well. Okay, and it's a Rat Colony deck by the looks of it, so 1 mana Rat Colonies can get scary. Only 3 cards in hand, but obviously has a Skull Clamp available. Alright, there is a Wood Elves. Now, I was considering maybe tapping all of our creatures and getting Harvest Season going before someone goes for the inevitable board wipe. Maybe we'll see that from Thalia, because we could make 3 lands from this turn, which isn't terrible for 3 mana. Why don't we play out our commander, and maybe that will help us decide, because we'll obviously draw a card off the Beast Whisperer here. Okay, that is an Elven Ambush, which does encourage me to hold off for as long as possible, so we maximise the number of lands that we get from this. But yeah, I think ramping up 3 lands here, especially when we're missing a land drop, will be okay. Not the flashiest play, but I am paranoid about a board wipe next turn. So we'll swing in towards the Birds of Paradise, and Beast Whisperer can go to the left. Obviously holding up mana for the Llanowar Elves. That will tap it down when we get the mana from that. Our opponent's just taking the damage, as you would expect, so yeah, we'll go for the not flashy play in Harvest Season. Obviously, if we had protection for our board, then I wouldn't be as keen to do this, but we don't at the moment, so it's 3 lands for 3 mana, which is not bad at all. It's not a board wipe. Thalia and the Gitrog monster coming into play and making a couple of lands, including the Argoth, Sanctum of Nature. Then down to 5 cards we see Argothian Enchantress, which might suggest the way our opponent's built his deck. Collector's Vault being activated for the 5-colour player, struggling on lands over here. And not another rat colony, it is Carumonix, which gives other rats Toxic 1, so we're going to have to look out for Infect Winds here. And then revealing any number of rat cards, just 1 rat colony there. So deciding to Skull Clamp on the rat colony that he had in hand, trying to make lands over here as well. Not managing to do that, so ending the turn with 6 cards in hand. That is a Tocasia's Welcome, so we are getting into the card advantage here. I'm happy that we're managing to keep our hand full. So Yeah, why don't we get the enchantment down? And then it's really between Wood Elves and the Galdrim Ambush, or probably Elven Ambush actually. We will get a card draw from this and from the Staff of the Storyteller. That will get a decent number of counters on it. But we've missed lands twice in a row here. Luckily we have ramped. I think I will go for the Wood Elves. That might draw us into a land here. And then we draw into the Great Henge, so yeah, we are getting into that ramp. Takazia's Welcome is going to draw us a card. We do get another mana. Alright, and that is an Arwen, Weaver of Hope. So going to buff the tokens as they come in. Yeah, so maybe next turn is the time to get something like this in. Then we can go Elven Ambush at the end of the Rat player's turn. And then slam down the Elvish Champion for even more damage and really start hitting our opponents hard. Let's go Beast Whisperer to the right. Another Enchantress, Invaduran Enchantress, yet to see an enchantment into these cards. 3 in hand, so you'd think he'd have one to play into these. That is an Arasta of the Endless Web, so yeah, if he's going to start getting spiders into play, we're really going to make use of this Forest Walk. Staying at 4 cards in hand now with 1 mana. The Thalia staying back, fortunately, because if it was going to swing in, it would swing in towards us. Maybe he's worried about the Toxic from this though, although it's way too early to be worried about that, I think. Collector's Vault again from the 5 colour player, effectively taking turns off here. I mean, he's seen more cards, but yeah, it's not really getting him anywhere, I don't think. Angelic Gift, that was discarded on the previous turn. And this time discarding Honden of Life's Web. Okay, managing to draw into something. Cracking the 2 treasures that he's made off the artifact. Alright, and just decides on Ghost Shintai of Life's Origin. So I wanted to set up some decent draws before going for the commander, apparently. Those obviously come into play tapped thanks to the Thalia. Alright, and a favourite of mine, Lord Skitter Sewer King, coming into play, along with that rat colony that we saw previously. Very noteworthy. A Gaia's Cradle, which can tap for black mana even after a board wipe, thanks to the Urborg, so we will see a token and start to see some graveyard exile here. And personally, I'd be going after the lands of the Thalia and Gitrog. Instead, we see the Honden of Life's Web getting exiled. I mean, suppose our opponent could grab stuff out of the bin there as well. A rat token then coming into play, and we'll see exile on something else. The Crowson Verge is a good hit, and it's noteworthy that the rat colony is a 5-1. Okay, and there we see a Teferi's Protection, so definitely the time to hold up Teferi's Protection or Elven Ambush. So I think we go for the Arwen, Weaver of Hope, and we'll get plus counters on our tokens when they enter. And that will cantrip thanks to the Beast Whisperer. We've got Eladamri, Lord of Leaves. Won't get the Elvish Champion and Eladamri out at the same time. Do have another chance to draw into a land thanks to the enchantment here. Well, not doing too well on that front, unfortunately. So, yeah, it may well be that we're going to have to discard here. We'll just hold back our creatures again because we're starting to see more creatures on the board here and they may well start turning in sideways at us. So it's a case of hoping for an Elven Ambush, and then we'll be able to draw another card off Staff of the Storyteller. And are we going to be able to get down the Great Henge next turn? We get down creatures with plus counters. There'll be 2 2s, 3 3s with this. Yeah, I just think it's going to be a bit too slow, unfortunately. So, yeah, it's going to be too slow. I think get rid of the Great Henge and the Elvish Harbinger. I'm hoping that we keep drawing enough cards to make the tutor irrelevant. And now it's a Hallowed Haunting for the Enchantress player. Gonna start making spirit tokens with that. And of course the cantrips continue. Well, he loves that Collector's Vault, activating it again during his turn. Just discarding a swamp with it this time, curiously. Not sure why he wouldn't just play the land. And we see the first Ghost Shintai after that discard. This is the Ancient Wars, and they will control a decent number of shrines thanks to the Ghost Shintai being in play. So might be a good idea to get down the Eladamri, Lord of Leaves, as opposed to the Elvish Champion. Although it's just players or planeswalkers, so no need to worry about damage directly onto our elves with that. But we have dodged spot removal for quite a while here. Another rat colony from the rat player. And we do have, there's one board wipe I can't remember the name of. It's like a double face card that will wipe the board of big creatures. I think it's big creatures, and then it brings back the small creatures on the other side. So yeah, we can get things out of the graveyard, just not very efficiently in these colours. Correctly going after the Marsh Flats, and then it would probably be an idea to go after our creatures in the bin. The rat colonies are now a 6-1. Will be a 7-1 after the rat token from the Sewer King. Seeing another rat colony first though, 3 cards in hand. Exiling our land as opposed to the creature. And now skull clamping one of the rat tokens that came in last turn. Did tap for 5 mana on the Gaia's Cradle, or it would have been 6 mana and just use one of it. Then gets down a Flooded Strand, which comes in tapped thanks to the Thalia and Gitrog monster over here. And then clamping a Summoning Sick rat colony. So he's maybe trying to get into a Living Death style effect. Might have been an idea for our opponent to go through to the second main phase because he would have got another rat token from the Sewer King. And that would have meant that he would have had another Skull Clamp if he's after something specific. Anyway, gets down another rat colony. 4 mana floating. Now going after another fetch land from us and exiling that. And then letting the 4 mana go, so 5 cards in hand but totally tapped out here. Sewer King makes another rat token. And we'll buff the rat colonies up to 7/1s again. Only one of which can swing in though. Now exiling the Harbinger. And if they turn in sideways towards us here, we might as well throw one of our elves in the way. And we can get rid of a rat colony before it becomes too much of a headache. Okay, but not swinging in at all, so need to make sure to hold up some white mana for the Staff of the Storyteller. But we'll go for an Elven Ambush here. This will make us an elf for every elf that we have in play. Also made our opponent his first spider token from Arasta over here. So a counter on Staff of the Storyteller. We will draw a card with the Takasia's Welcome as well. So I'll just activate the staff straight away. Still not getting into any lands off the top, so I'm glad I went for that ramp when I did. Okay, there's one, Cavern of Souls. And for once, we're not playing up against blue players. Now have even more protection in Clever Concealment, which I'm not against. So throw out the Cavern of Souls, obviously name Elf in the Elf Tribal deck. And that does come in tapped, but at least we made a land this turn. So yeah, I think we're fine to go for the Elvish Champion. That will buff up the Arwen in order to put more plus counters on stuff. Draws us into a Farhaven Elf. And we do have a Spirit token in play, which is good for tapping down to the Clever Concealment. So we need to work out what we want to do after this. Draw from the Takasia's Welcome, because haven't had a creature enter this turn. There's a Sol Ring, so I think we're fine to automatically throw down the Sol Ring. So after casting Teferi's Protection, we'd have 3 mana left, which could just be a Windswift Slice. And that could get rid of Toxic over here maybe, if they somehow manage to Alpha Strike us. And failing that, we can go for the 6 mana Rhys the Redeemed ability. So yeah, we've got a decent amount of stuff to do here. Let's go through to attacks. And I think I'm going to dedicate most of the board towards the Thalia and Gitrog player. So yeah, I'll just attack like that. All of those going to the left. I want to hold up a fairly decent number of blockers just in case we need them. Obviously we can make more at instant speed. But already this is going way better than our previous games went. Not only is the deck functioning more efficiently, but yeah, we're not up against crazy powerful players here, thankfully. So Thalia and the Gitrog monster going down to 20. And we have to discard, it'll be Farhaven Elf to hand size, I think we'll be fine. A Sylvan Library for some more card draw. And that will make the first Hallowed Haunting Spirit token. Okay, a Moonshaker Cavalry. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's maybe a little bit early to do that, but yeah, suppose they can deal a good chunk of damage to someone. So maybe it would be a good idea to go for the Galadrim Ambush now, although we won't be able to block anything, so maybe hold that off for maybe an Alpha Strike from Go Shintai with all those tokens, or the Rat player. Yeah, this is a nice chunk of damage, an 8-9, a 10-12, a 7-9, a 7-8, and 11 commander damage. Noteworthy that, unlike Kraytooth, this doesn't have haste. So we'll make our opponent waste his attack here, being reactionary and coming in towards us, although we are the threat here, I think. Although this player may well be opening himself up to some toxic shenanigans. This player doesn't seem all that eager to swing in for toxic, though. So Thalia and the Gitrog going to sacrifice something to draw a card. So we'll have Clever Concealment held up, even after going for something like Galadrim Ambush. So do we just do this for the fun of it? I mean, it would be a fun play. Yeah, let's go for that. Is our opponent swinging in with any elves here? That's a human. Yeah, they're all humans and spiders swinging in, so Yeah, should be fine here. Arasta making another spider token in response to that. It is noteworthy that we can't protect our life total doing it this way, because the Teferi's protection will protect our life total, whereas Clever Concealment will not, but we can chump block and then phase out in response, as long as no one gets trample. Staff of the Storyteller gets another counter, which we'll hopefully be able to remove at the end of the Rat player's turn. And Tkasia's Welcome obviously draws us as well. Both of these cards have been excellent. And speaking of excellent, there is an Elvish Archdruid. Won't be able to get that in with haste. Could get rid of this player and then play it so it comes in untapped though. Okay, so it's just a case of hoping that the card works correctly and no damage is dealt here. Alright, excellent, that worked correctly. It's always a worry on Magic Online if cards are going to operate as they should. Noteworthy, those tokens did come down as 4/4s thanks to both the Anthem effect from this and the fact that this now has 2 toughness. I like this as a pseudo lord because you obviously keep the plus counters from this, whereas if something like the Elvish Champion or Elvish Archdruid went down, you would lose the buff, so yeah, it is a decent include, Arwen, I think. Anyway, Honden of Cleansing Fire from our opponent, who is still struggling on mana over there. Making another Shrine token though, not going to be able to deal damage with the red Shintai. Does have 6 shrines in play, so that will become relevant. Skullclamp goes on to the Rat token straight away for the Rat player. Has already tapped down the guy's Cradle for mana in the meantime. So he might be hunting for something to get these Rat colonies through, and that's why he doesn't want to pass through the first main phase before clamping and tapping down the guy's Cradle. He does seem to be hunting for something specific. Cracking the fetch for a plane so that it comes in untapped. He does seem to be hunting for something specific. Cracking the Flooded Strand in order to get down a basic plains so that it comes in untapped. Skullclamp now getting rid of a 6/1 Rat colony. Yeah, not sure what my opponent's aim is here. It may well be the Living Death tactic. That will wipe the board and it will bring back all these Rat colonies. Alright, and there's a Disciple of Bolas, so that will gain a nice chunk of life and draw some cards. No doubt sacrificing a 5/1 Rat colony. Noteworthy that he has 8 cards in hand over there. Still has enough mana for this Living Death though. Making more rats with a Chittering Witch. Didn't manage to get into that board wipe seemingly. Will have the mana to go for -2/-2 onto something though. So the question is, are we eager to keep our Rhys the Redeemed or not, if that's what they go after? Comes in with 3 rats with Toxic Wands, so the Sewer King going to exile some stuff again. Not going for the -2/-2 with the Witch though, going for another Rat colony for only 1 mana, 11 cards in hand, and decimating our graveyard here. Getting rid of the fetch, the 1 remaining card in the Thalia and Gitrog player's graveyard anyway, which I don't think is going to be relevant. I'm really going to try and get rid of him this turn. The last mana goes into yet another Rat colony. And now it's the beginning of combat, so we see another Rat token, and that buffs the colonies up to 10 wands now. Alright, so not having to use any of our phase out shenanigans here is really good. So all we really have to do is go for the Staff of the Storyteller then. Now that gets us into an Elvish Warmaster, which is a bit of an overrun effect of our own. So it's a bit of a balancing act at the moment. We want to dedicate more bodies to the board, but we don't want to overextend into a board wipe that our opponent might be able to get us with if they gang up on us. We also don't really want to be discarding down to hand size because it's a bit of a waste. Get into a forest this turn, which I think is fine to just play straight away. Maybe we get into a guy's Cradle, so shouldn't play that, but I don't think it really matters. So it can be the Elvish Archdruid, should be fine, I think. And I'm just playing that out now so that we get another buff, and we'll want Summoning Sickness off this thing anyway. Draws us a card with the Beast Whisperer. We'll get one from the Tkasia's Welcome as well, and that is another land. And I do of course really want to be dedicating bodies to the board. Heritage Druid is a means of making even more mana, so might get that down this turn. But we'll go through to combat, and we only have to send 4 of these tokens into the left now, although it might be that they've got Swords to Plowshares or something, so I'll send all of these into the left, and then we can see all of these go into the right against the Rat player, I think, and I'll send the Wood Elves over there as well. Argument to be made, I suppose if they do have Swords to Plowshares or something, they'd put it on the thing that's giving Forest Walks, so yeah, maybe should have gone for this. There is a bit of a nombo with this card. in that you can't do Skull Clamp and other equip effects, but I'm really not playing it because I don't want 2 Forest Walks in play, really. It's an absolutely perfect board to have Forest Walk in, up against 3 opponents that are playing green. Looks like they don't have anything though. Our opponents are taking the damage valiantly. So that player going down to -6, the rat player down to 18. Yeah, I think we're fine to go for the Realm Walker here. I'll probably get down the Heritage Druid as well. Might be that we can't get down to 7 cards in hand thanks to the Beast Whisperer. Not the worst problem to have, drawing too many cards. Although if we can clear lots of lands off the top, that would be pretty good. The Changeling comes down as an elf, and it is a forest on top again, so we'll be fine to go for the Heritage Druid and discard some lands here. I do have Crater Hoof in the deck as well. It's boring and average, but in certain games on Magic Online you will be eager to finish a game off that's been a bit of a drag, so yeah, I will try not to play cards like that in a deck like this and in a game like this, but it is in the deck for anyone that thinks we should be running that. So discard hand size can just be a couple of forests, and we're looking pretty commanding here. Honden of the Cleansing Fire gains 2 life for each shrine our opponent controls, so jumps up to 51. Might have to use that Crater Hoof if that sticks around any longer. Got plenty of mana for the Heritage Druid into the Rhys now as well, which we've made little to no use of. That's often the problem with Rhys. But we also haven't got into any of the shenanigans like Seedborn Muse to untap every turn. Otherwise we'd be going crazy with this thing. Anyway, the basic or non-basic lands coming into play untapped now. Our opponent finally making that 4th land. Excellent. Our opponent's managed to hardcast a Sanctum of All. So playing that from the hand. And triggering the Go Shintai twice makes a couple of Shrine tokens. Luckily for us, still does not have the mana for the red Go Shintai here, which will be at 9. But hopefully we'll be able to go for some kind of Alpha Strike next turn. And we've got decent buffs on our creatures as well, so this is a 7/8 for example, so the Windswift Slice is going to be even better and make us more tokens. So I'll probably go after the Go Shintai with that. Although the 1 toughness rats are always a good target as well. 10 mana from the Guy's Cradle this time. And it's -2/2. Trying to go after the Elvish Champion here. So how much black mana do they have? Because they'll be able to do stuff in response. Yeah, they're going to be able to get rid of our Elvish Champion here by the looks of it, but we do have this, so do we care? Probably just make them use the mana at this point. Oh, of course, they've got the Urborg, don't they? So all their lands can tap for black, so they can definitely get the Elvish Champion no matter what. We'll wait for them to put another on the stack, and it will waste more of their mana trying to get it in response to what's likely a Teferi's Protection we're probably going for. Okay, leaving it at a 1/1, there is a Skull Clamp going on to the Disciple of Bolas there, so it might be our opponent wastes his mana on other things here. Skull Clamp on a rat colony, as opposed to a rat token, is interesting. And again, he's going to have 61 cards left in his library. And again, 15 cards in hand. Yeah, if he's just going to go for Skull Clamp stuff into Mass Reanimation or a board wipe, I can't think why he'd waste 4 mana on Elvish Champion. He seems to have forgotten about that now. Okay, Farewell. His creatures and enchantments leaving graveyards alone, again, is very telling. So let's go for... I don't want to tap down too many creatures in case we need this as well. But we'll go for Rhys the Redeemed's activation here. Heritage Druid going to tap down our creatures for green mana. We'll tap down the champion before we lose out on that potential mana. It's potentially a greedy play, this, because... yeah, can our opponent counter something here? Probably not. So I'm activating Rhys the Redeemed to double up the number of tokens that we have in play. What I should do really is just go for the Teferi's Protection straight away, and then if our opponent manages to do something we can Clever Concealment. We've only got 1 of them held up at the moment now, although Rhys the Redeemed could change that. This Spirit token's actually been more relevant than I thought it would be, thanks to being able to tap for white mana into the Clever Concealment, and we're going to have 2 of those thanks to Rhys. Alright, it does land, so Takazia's welcome, and we will get a counter on the Staff of the Storyteller. So again, we can hold up both of the instants. Like I said, I'm not sure what our opponent could have done in response to the Rhys the Redeemed activation, but those creatures coming in as 6/6 Forest Walkers, and we got a 4/4 Spirit over here as well. Right, so we knew what we were drawing into. That is a Wirewood Channeler. can see that thanks to the changeling here. Now we have on top a Shamanic Revelation, speaking of card draw. Haven't struggled on cards this game. Yeah, we'll go for the Teferi's Protection. In fact, we better draw a card from Staff of the Storyteller first, because we don't want that permanent to phase out. And now one of my pet cards in the Elf decks, Wolverine Riders. No need to play that though, we'll probably just go for the Alpha Strike next turn. Teferi's Protection. So now the Chittering Witch going on to the Forest Walking Elvish Champion. Like I've said a few times, we've got this, so just going to let it happen and keep hold of the Clever Concealment just in case. And that is successful, so our opponent kindly clearing the way for our Elf army to swing in next turn. Fortunately for us, this is the first board wipe that we've seen. Actually, the first bit of interaction we've seen, I think. And then ending the turn off with a last hurrah on the rat colony. Alright, so our opponents look like they're being graceful here. I won't waste any more of their time. Just play the land, have a Swords to Plowshares on top, which we can easily draw into if we want to. We'll go through to combat. And it is 50 damage from these. Going in to the left should be exactly enough. And then we'll just send some tokens in at the right. So yeah, like I mentioned before, we do have some untapped shenanigans. There's an enchantment from Eldraine, a white one for 5 mana that puts plus counters on things and untaps them at the end of your turn. Obviously goes really well with Rhys. You could activate it a couple of times. And if you've got something like Elvish Archdruid in play, can generate lots and lots of mana. Seaborn Muse is the one to go after there because it untaps all your stuff on every turn. So you can just go nuts with lots and lots of tokens, maybe even break the client if you're playing on Magic Online. Luckily for us, it was a pretty battlecruiser game where there was hardly any removal or board wipes or anything, so this is what happens when you leave Rhys the Redeemed alone, apparently, in an Elf Tribal deck at least. But we were up against 3 cool opponents who actually managed to play out a full game, so yeah, fancy that on Magic Online. Hugely grateful to them for that, and hugely grateful to all of you for joining me today as well, and to the patrons for supporting the channel financially. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.